Are we close, Travis?
Yep, we're good. I was just testing out the audio. Sounds good.
Okay, great. Welcome everybody to our virtual town hall, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to spend some time with us and just learn a little bit about what's been going on with the schools. We're here to talk tonight about a lot of different things. Mainly our goal here tonight is to be able to answer your questions, and we have a number of people joining us. I anticipate that we'll have some more joining us throughout the time that we're together. We also had some people that submitted some questions that we'll try to get to as well if we have time. But I wanted to just let everybody know that we are streaming this. It's on our Board of Education YouTube channel. And those of you that are watching from home, we appreciate you being with us as well. I'm pleased and honored to work with some incredible people. So some of the people that are really working day in and day out in the buildings that have a lot of insight and knowledge into this. We're here with Principal Katie. She's the principal of Gaines Elementary School as well as Deke Elementary School. And then Mr. Jim Kitchen is also with us tonight, high school principal. And a lot of the questions that have come in were technology related. And so we have Mr. Travis Smith, our executive director of technology. And so we're here to provide you with some insights. And so I want to try and go over just a few ground rules on how we've done this in the past. We have some questions that have been asked, and we are certainly going to get to those, but first and foremost, we'd like to honor the people that are on this actual call with us. And so when the time comes, if you would like to just say that you have a question, and just put yourself into the chat, use the chat to say, I'd like to ask a question. I will go ahead and unmute you and then let you know, and we'll let you ask that question. And it can be a question directed at any of the four of us, just kind of throwing it out there in general. And if we, for whatever reason, cannot get the answer to you, we will find a way to do so. So I'll give you just a little bit of an overview. Obviously, this has been a year unlike any other. We've never, most people I've talked to have never experienced anything like 2020. And so as we look at COVID and as we look at how school has been done this year, it is very atypical. That being said, I'm very proud of the work that our teachers are doing, that our support staff is doing, our principals. I truly believe we have pulled off one of the most tremendous systems of learning anywhere in this state. So I'm very proud of that. I know that, as parents, there's a lot of concern. There's worry about, what is my kid's education going to look like, and so on and so forth. And I know many of you probably have questions about that tonight. But we have been able to execute a plan very well to offer children choice and families choice in their learning. And so we have three fully functioning educational systems going on at the same time. We have three modalities. The first modality being, of course, face-to-face. It's 5 days a week. Kids are in class in a whatever normal looks like anymore schedule. We do have, hand washing breaks and safety protocols that are in place. Masks are required while we're in school. These are all things that we have been following and complying with to try and keep kids safe. And I will tell you that we've been very successful in that. We have little to no evidence of transmission still to this point with all of the work that has been done in the buildings. We also have a hybrid system where kids come a couple days a week. They're in lower density classes. They have usually 3 days a week of virtual instruction and 2 days a week of face-to-face in the school. So we have a number of our families doing that. That's the smallest selection at this time. And then we also have a number of our families who are engaging in fully online modality, meaning that they never report to school. The instruction is delivered by our teachers in a virtual format. I think it's worth noting for all of you that are joining the call today and anyone watching, our teachers have really never had to do this before. And this is one of the most challenging tasks to ask of a teacher, to be in different learning modalities. In some cases, like at our high school, they're teaching in multiple modalities. They teach different classes. We have some amazing people that work for Swartz Creek Schools, and they're doing it every day because they want to do what's best for kids. But I also want you to understand this is not easy. Our support staff trying to handle all the PPE and all of those protocols are very challenging, and they're very important. So I would say people are probably a little more tired this time of year than they even normally are this time of year. And this is a long stretch, just because it has been different. But I want to draw your attention real quickly to one resource that we have on our website. And I'm just going to try and share my screen with you here. So let me just get to that. All righty. All right. Jim, Katie, are you seeing the district webpage at this point? Okay. So this is just our website. Most of you have probably seen this. Nothing out of the ordinary there. There are a couple buttons. This COVID-19 updates is a good place that you can go. You can also access up here where it says community, and you can click on COVID-19 updates and resources. And there's one particular page that I think is going to be important. If you click right here where it says District COVID-19 Dashboard, right here, this is a live document. So this document means that we are updating this every day. So this is up to date as of today. And this tells us the number. So we have high school, virtual learning center, the middle school, Deke, Elms, Gaines, Moorish, all of our buildings right across the top there. And then we're going to start seeing, okay, how many cases do we have with our staff? Right now, we have absolutely 0 cases amongst our staff. That can change on a day-to-day basis. We have had a number of cases, actually 9 cases of staff COVID-19 positive cases that have been recorded throughout this school year. Then we start getting into students. So currently we have 7 high school students that are working through a quarantine because they've been tested as positive. Most of those were from a little over a week ago, and Mr. Kitchen will touch on that a little bit today. We actually have no cases in any of our other buildings, which is a positive. If you look at the total positive cases, though, from our high school, we've had 22 cases this year to date, and that includes the current 7. We've also had 3 at our middle school and 1 in our elementary schools. So if you consider that data, it's pretty impressive, really, quite frankly, that we've had so few cases with so many kids coming to school on a fairly regular basis. So what that data really does lend itself to, I think, is, kids are being very good at following, the different directions that are there. The cleaning is taking place. So that data is very, very supportive of what we're doing. we get a lot of questions, and I'm sure we'll get them tonight. What are we going to do about switching to virtual? I know cases are going up. I would continually refer back to this document because this is actually our school district's data for our kids. And so this is going to be something that has a much higher impact on us probably than just in general, just kind of generically saying across our state cases are going up. We really need to look at what is happening with our own kids. Now, another thing that this dashboard talks to, and I think this is really important, and I know there's a lot of frustration around this. We, as an example, had a couple cases of COVID with high school students this weekend. There were a large number, to the tune of almost 80 students that had to be quarantined as a result of those positive cases. So why is that, and how does that work? Well, let's say we have a student who has tested positive for COVID-19. We go back through and we look at who they would have come within 6 feet of for 15 minutes or more in a 24-hour period. And when we look at those students that were in those places, those are the students that have to serve in that quarantine. The unfortunate reality is we have no way of knowing at any given point of time if your student or if a student would have to be quarantined. And we do have a couple kids that have actually a handful of kids that have had to quarantine, multiple times. So that's the downside and the unfortunate reality. We work very closely with the health department, but as you can see, just one case of COVID can have a drastic impact on a large number of kids if we have to quarantine a large number. So I would encourage you to be aware that resource exists and that transparency page is there. And it's an opportunity really for you to see up-to-date data. So all of our schools are putting that in as soon as we have a case. Our high school obviously has been the building where we've had the most significant cases. What we're being told, and you'll probably even read this in the news, is that a lot of the cases that we're seeing, they're coming from, interactions that happen at home or, maybe at a social gathering. And so, of course, that spills over into the school because we have to then do the contact tracing. And so our principals and teachers and support staff spend a lot of time doing that. So that's giving you a little bit of an overview on how we're kind of handling COVID-19 and also a little bit of an overview on our learning modalities. I would tell you that we did our spring data review as well. And, Principal Prayer, I don't know if you maybe want to talk to some of the ahas that we found relative to the data. Obviously we have kids that have been out of school physically in many cases, and so we saw some gaps. We recently looked at our district MTSS team, which stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. It's kind of like our school improvement team. They looked at some data that was actually very encouraging relative to seeing that a lot of our kids
Travis, is it just him frozen or is it me?
I'm still here. You're still here.
Okay.
And when he freezes and the picture's still perfect. Like when I freeze, my eyes are closed.
I know. How does he do that?
Yeah.
It's like magic.
Mm-hmm. Try to not blink because you might freeze.
Don't blink.
Okay, you could talk about some of your aha moments.
I can absolutely do that. So, as Ben said, I am Katie Preer. I am the principal at Deacon Gaines Elementary. So I have a 3-5 building and we have a K-5 building. I also am very invested in the MTSS framework here in Swartz Creek. We have such a positive framework for that. We are trying to build level systems of support for all of our children. So we do a data review 3 times a year, and we held that in October. We bring the team together and we talk about our kiddos. So one of the things that we talked about was that we did not see a slide in our tier 1 students, which means students who were on or above grade level. So our kiddos from last year, where we left off in March, when they came back in the fall, they were still sitting, at tier 1, which is a huge positive thing. I think we were all a little anxious that these kiddos might have experienced a little bit more summer loss with having that prolonged break. However, they came right back in kind of where they left off with our tier 1 students. Then we started looking at our tier 2 and our tier 3 students. And a tier 2 kiddo is somebody who's just not quite to grade level. They're not significantly below grade level, but they're not quite there. They're like our middle of the road friends. And so we were able to kind of see where our tier 2 friends are sitting and what that looks like for them and what skills they were missing. And with those folks, you can kind of see they are missing that instruction that we would have provided to them, super in depth from face to face from that March, April, May. And then we were able to look at our tier 3 data. And our tier 3 kiddos, we were able to do a lot of brainstorming and support. Mainly as an MTSS system, we were looking at providing supports face-to-face. Now with these 3 modalities, our team has really had to dig in and determine how can we provide supports to all children across all of the modalities. And we've had some really great conversations and some brainstorming, and I'm so proud of our online teachers K-12. They are doing such great things for children in a remote learning situation that I don't even think they realize we're tiered supports. We support our teachers and we go into their virtual classrooms, and I'm so pleased to report that I can't tell the difference right now between a virtual classroom and a face-to-face classroom because of the high level engagement and some of the things that are going on in those platforms. So I just kudos to our online teachers K-12 who are really doing their very best to meet all of our kids' needs. Some of the things that we're trying to do, and we would love to maybe gather some more feedback from the community. As Ben mentioned, there are some technology questions, and we realize as a system, we do have some barriers that we're trying to overcome with that. We have this area or these number of students that we call disengaged. And they're disengaged for a number of reasons, whether they're having technology issues or, they're not able to jump on during the day because of the parents' work schedule and this and that. So we're trying to figure out what is the best way to support those families and what exactly do those families need in order for their child to be successful. Because we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our families with wherever they're at in their specific situation. So that's kind of where we're at with our report from MTSS. We're hitting on all cylinders. We're providing supports within all 3 modalities, and we're just super pleased with all of the positive things that we're seeing. We understand and have identified our barriers, and we have action plans in place to address those. And we're always looking for feedback and support and different ideas on how we can reach families to better serve you.
So, Mr. Kitchen, I don't know if you want to take, I know that Ms. Preer got a chance to talk about the positive things in the data. Maybe you could be the gloomy one and talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we are seeing with our kids that are in those online modalities that are disengaged. I know a lot of high school students, one of our concerns is how are we reaching them? What are we doing about that? How are we trying to make sure that they're not slipping through the cracks? But it is a concern, and it's going to require some assistance from the home as well. And so maybe you can speak about some of the downside of what we're seeing in those online modalities.
Yes. And as we looked at, we use the STAR reading and STAR math as indicators for us to measure progress. When we looked at our data also looked really good. But what we discovered is we had a lot of students who did not take the test. And so our academic data, at least for this year, is not as great as we would like it to be. So when we had our data meeting was entirely focused on student engagement. And so we met as in departments, and basically created a list of students that we've been having a challenge or a hard time getting in touch with. And we made a list, and then we started looking for patterns. And the way that we've responded is really trying to be intensive in our efforts to do home visits. And so we have an at-risk coordinator who helps us pull all this data together. And we've been sending our social worker, our police officer. We had teams from the office so that we could get out there and make sure that our students are okay. It's under the title of a wellness check. And when we go to those students, we take a Chromebook and we want to make sure that they're able to log on. And so this has been a big obstacle with our online portion. We have students who are blooming with the online, but we have some students who quite frankly should not be taking the online modality. And when we come up on the second semester, we're going to really be looking at opportunities to counsel students into opportunities that will best meet their needs. So our team has really been doing a nice job at trying to reach out and engage with all students, but this does remain an obstacle as we have a lot of kids that we have not necessarily made contact, the kind of contact that we'd like with.
Yeah, and I think certainly one of the things we've found is that there are kids who, they needed to be virtual for, the pandemic, or, it might have been a family medical issue. But we've also found that there are a number of our kids who maybe they were struggling to stay engaged and present in a face-to-face traditional sense in the past. And if they went virtual, that has just exacerbated itself. And so this is a concern and something that we're really working on. It's a concern across the state, the country, certainly our county. We talk about it all the time. So those are some introductory comments from us. And Travis is available as well to jump in on any technology questions. But I would like to give you the opportunity to start to ask questions. So for those of you that are on the call, if you'd like to ask a question, you can go ahead and just put your name in the chat, and I would be happy to engage with you and let you ask us a question at this time. All right, so we're going to start with Steve Cook. And so, Steve, I think you are unmuted, so go ahead and fire away.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So, two quick questions. First and foremost, missing the music videos anytime of a new release. Can do them via
We've
Zoom.
been asked about that. We've been a little bit gun shy with COVID-19, and everybody is, I think, on edge. And so maybe that's just what the doctor ordered. So we'll have to see what's in the coffers.
So my question is, and I won't be long-winded about it, is really the virtual classroom setup. So just an idea to throw out there, maybe it's already been tabled, is, like you mentioned, some students struggle with the online. They don't have the interaction of face-to-face. With technology the way that it is, why can't there be a setup to where if I was a student, I still have my normal daily 6-hour schedule, so both my kids are in high school, and I have my first through my 6th hour. Is the functionality, is the possibility there, the technology there to be able to put a camera in a classroom and have a student sit on a Zoom call like we are right now and still attend that classroom as if they were there in person, versus meeting one day a week and having a list of assignments. For some students, they'll flourish. It'll prepare them for college. But for other students, it becomes a struggle of not having that interaction of, here's your assignments. You get me for 1 hour a week. If you need me, send me an email and we'll set up a one-on-one, but I'll see you next week. So I'm looking in more or less in the spirit of continuous improvement. As far as the school district, a phenomenal job. I have to give my hats off for you to go from where we were to where we are. I can't imagine everything you had to go through. But it also, my thought process is it makes it more seamless. If somebody does have to get quarantined, they leave school. If I'm a student at school 5 days a week and I get quarantined for 2 weeks, I know I have to switch to an online model, and then I have to come back to a school model. So this model would almost make it seamless where whether I'm in school or not, I'm there in the classroom. Sorry to be so long-winded.
No, I think it's great. It's a great idea and a great concept. It is surfacing as a conversation. And I think, Steve, to one of your points too early on, we looked at research on what is the best setup and scenario for online learning? And we also did get some feedback from families that one of the challenges in the spring was creating that schedule. So if I've got, if I'm working virtually for work and my kid's got to be sitting in front of a computer screen for 6 hours, that's really a kind of a roadblock or a barrier. And so then we started looking at research, and the research on online instruction is that really the most beneficial is when students have some combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning, meaning that there's opportunities for that, kind of like you're saying, I've got a camera, a window into the classroom, if you will, or I've got a teacher that is teaching the class, for an hour, and I'm just basically participating live. There's good, that's a good thing. But it's not necessarily, the research would say not all the time. So having kind of a combination of synchronous and asynchronous being, I'm putting some stuff out there, you guys work on it as you can, and then I'll get back with you and respond. We're trying to do a combination of that. There are other models in the county, and we're watching that and looking at that data where some people they're logging on at 7 a.m. and from 7 a.m. to 2:30, the kids are sitting at their homes or wherever it is, and the teacher is in a classroom, teaching that. So we've made kind of an intentional decision to not do that. It doesn't mean, though, that we don't need to look at the possibility of, as you're saying, what other options are there, right? Because we are going to need to get better in all of these things. And so I think you used a word that is really important for all of us, and that's continuously improving. This is kind of a new frontier for all of us. And so maybe, especially for those kids that do get quarantined, and I keep using this phrase because that's what we've talked about in some of our meetings, is that window to the classroom. I'm not really missing the direct instruction that's coming from the teacher if I have that capability. So I'm adding it to our notes here. And I think that's really good feedback and something that we can take back to the team and really look at. So I hope that I came around to it, but I don't know if the Travis, Jim, Katie, I don't know if you have anything to add to that at all.
I think you nailed it with the answer, only because right now we're asking teachers to do so much as far as new learning for them. And as you can imagine, there are some struggles that go along with that. And I do think that we're like on the verge of where you're going to be getting instruction live in the classroom. But I think it's kind of at this point, we're just taking steps toward that. I think I've said this on our last town hall meeting, that this is really going to open us up into something great. I mean, I believe that students should have had opportunities like this 5 years ago, when they should have been able to go in and choose whether they wanted to be online or in person. And so we're moving in that way, and we're moving quickly. So I do think that you'll see something like that very soon.
Yes, I agree completely, Jim. At the K-5 level, we're exploring what that looks like, because our elementary teachers, they teach 5 content areas on a day, and so they have to be able to provide all of that instruction. And so we're definitely looking at how we can do that. Are there opportunities to record and then push out? So they're definitely exploring, and the teachers are willing and wanting to do that. So echoing exactly what Mr. Kitchen and Mr. Micah said.
And then maybe Travis, if you want to maybe jump on and just from a technical aspect, can you describe our readiness in our ability to do that type of instruction, and maybe where we're at with our devices and things like that?
Sure. We've discussed this, with the other tech directors around the county and on the listserv throughout the state. It's an interesting topic because it's also opened up a can of worms about privacy laws against that, some of these things. So it really would have to be a closed channel type live event that would be, registration only. And as far as where we're at, we would just need to, come up with a system for the teachers that would be easy to use. I think the big thing this year would be, trying to get them to use Canvas and some of these brand new learning tools. And then on top of that, there would be a system in the classroom that they would need to be using as well. And that's some of the things that the other schools have mentioned, is that they've almost had to had a parapro in the room to also help with basically producing this. But I agree. I think that that's where we're going. And I think what it might end up being is maybe a hybrid approach to our online learning, where we're providing some type of synchronous learners, depending on your EDP plan. Maybe you're in a live instruction mode. And if you're in a more of a college type plan learner, then maybe you're doing what we're doing right now, asynchronous, where you're turning in assignments ad hoc, and going that route. So I think that eventually we'll probably have to have almost 2 different online systems in order to meet the needs of all the students.
So it's definitely a really good idea, Steve, and good conversation. Did you have any other questions for us?
No, I think at this point you guys covered it pretty well.
Okay. Thank you, and thanks for being on with us. And obviously, you're welcome to stay on if you have other questions. Next, we're going to go to Renee Kruger. So, Renee, if you are ready, you are going to be unmuted here momentarily. You should be unmuted and good to go. Hi.
Hi. First of all, thank you for holding these. I've been on every one, and I'm kind of that nerdy mom. That kid is doing very well in hybrid, but I'm an educator myself, so I wish more people were on here.
Sure.
And again, my daughter's doing pretty good hybrid. She does have a couple high school classes, or she is a 10th grade student, but she does have a couple solely online classes. I guess my question is there any way that we can streamline the expectations at the high school level on when to expect work from teachers, when that needs to be handed in? Some teachers are very consistent. Some teachers are not so consistent, which causes a little anxiety and stress for us here at home.
Sure. I'll let Mr. Kitchen take that one.
Yes, for sure. And so we have a policy that we accept late work. And I think this is what you're referencing. So one of the dilemmas that we have at the high school that the teachers share with me as we're moving towards standards reference grading is the amount of work that comes in at the end of the marking period. So they put deadlines in place to try to encourage students to finish, but by no means would we ever say that a student can't turn in the work. We do say, by the first marking period, for example, we'd like it turned in a week before, and then obviously the same with the second semester. So it's always to turn in the work to show they're learning. But the teachers do set expectations so that they can try to encourage students not to procrastinate to the end. So if you're in a situation where your student's working hard and you want to turn that work, it might be as easy as just a phone call or an email to the teacher. And I'm confident that they'll be flexible with you.
Yeah, and I think from a systematic perspective too, Renee, we're looking at the second semester. Okay, so when we set this up, we had all the best intentions, and I'm seriously very impressed with what our staff is doing. But they're working extremely hard, and there's some things we can do to streamline this. So in terms of common expectations around, assessment, right? And how much are we putting out there? Because a lot of times the transition is tough. I mean, if I were teaching face-to-face, which I taught face-to-face as a teacher when I was a teacher. So if I had to be told after 15, 20 years of teaching face-to-face, now you're going to learn how to do this online, my natural tendency would be to try and figure out how to do what I was doing face-to-face in an online setting. And sometimes that's not the right match, right? Sometimes it's understanding that maybe I need to not assign quite as much of the same type of work and do a little bit of more discussion or different types of work. And a lot of our teachers are really, in the conversations I have with them too, there's a lot of ahas around that. So at the second semester, we're having a lot of dialogue with our teachers. We're having a lot of dialogue with our administrative team. And I know we're going to talk about modalities here in a little bit. That's going to be a big part of the conversation. How do we make what we're doing better and easier for the staff, easier for the parents, easier for the kids? And when I say easier, it doesn't mean easy in terms of rigor of instruction. It means, let's not get caught up in the logistics. And Travis talks about that all the time. Let's not create problems or create solutions for problems that don't exist, right? Like, let's try and find simple ways to make the technology and the systems work so that the stuff that's hard is actually the learning part. Like that's the part where we want kids to struggle through and learn and get that grit, but not on a sense of, oh, I just got dumped on and it's all coming. It's feast or famine with when I get tests and things like that. So there's a lot of conversations going on even in departments about that right now. So we're definitely aware of that and thinking about how do we move forward in the second semester with a little bit more of a consistent platform. Does that sort of answer your question, Renee? Or
Absolutely. And I get it. Switching from one modality to, I mean, that's nightmarish. I'm dealing with that right myself.
Sure.
I think teachers are doing an awesome job, and it is definitely not what we went to school for, learning and modalities. So I get it. So I was just wondering if in the future, those conversations are happening, and it sounds like they are.
Yeah. And I'm glad it's a good reminder for us again, and good feedback, and we'll continue to take that. So thank you for the question. Next up, we have Lakeisha. I don't know. I'm going to be unmuting you, so you should be unmuted momentarily. And you should be good to go.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you guys for holding these. It's very much appreciated. And I also want to shout out the district for how well everything is going. I'm one of the parents who have been lucky to not have been having very many issues. I have 2 children, one in the middle school, one in at Elms Road. We had a few little hiccups with my elementary student, but Mrs. McDonald was great, and she really appreciated feedback that I had given her, and we kind of worked out those kinks.
Awesome.
My question was kind of answered when you displayed the numbers at the beginning, because I see that in the district we have low numbers as far as students who have contracted COVID. But I still would like to know if there's a plan, because with the numbers going up around the state, and I'm seeing other districts closing down or going completely virtual. I'm just wondering, is there a plan in place in the event the governor shuts us down again, where the governor shuts down school again? What is that plan going to look like, if there is one that you guys are working on?
Yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic question and a timely question. I can kind of speak to that. So yes, there is definitely conversation in Lansing about, okay, the numbers statewide are going up. You're seeing school districts as like some of the largest school districts in the state, Clarkston, for example. They just made a decision at their meeting last week that they were going to go fully virtual. They're shutting it down mid-January, and they're going to take a wait and see approach. We definitely know that is a possibility. We have displayed already, as we did when we closed our high school for a week, that there may be times where we have to take a timeout and we have to say, look, and I would just caution everybody, it might not be because we're terrified of mass outbreaks of COVID. It might be that we just don't have enough bodies to teach kids because of the quarantines that we have. We've had that happen already. And so I think I think from the standpoint of, is there a plan? Absolutely. So we had a plan when we started this school year that if we went full virtual, our teachers have been trained. They understand how to use our online and digital platforms, and we would be delivering instruction remotely. Now, if we're delivering instruction remotely, full virtual, meaning that our face-to-face kids go virtual, if we're forced into that, there would be, as we spoke at the beginning, an expectation of synchronous and asynchronous instruction, meaning there is that contact live with students and those opportunities to connect with each other. There's also an opportunity for the kids to kind of work a little bit more at their own pace. But of course, that would be in the event that some external body puts us out, or we have to, based on guidance or advice, take a timeout or a little hiatus. I was talking with a staff member today, and they're noticing, the big districts that are starting to close down, and it's flu season, And so the rumor mills they go rampant, right? So everybody's like, oh, so when are we closing down? I heard we're shutting it down. What's the date we're shutting down? And there have been, and very clearly can tell you this, there have been absolutely zero conversations about shutting school down. The reason for that is because we offer 3 separate modalities. And in the event that we have an issue where we see there's maybe going to be an outbreak or spread, we will take an isolated approach and say, this class, this school building, this level, or possibly the district needs to go virtual for a period of time. We're trying our best to provide the options for families. And so to a parent that would say, I'm looking at these numbers and I'm just not as comfortable sending my kid to school, well, then you have that opportunity to kind of flip that switch to virtual mode. Now, I will tell you, it's much easier to do that at the semester point than trying to do it at this point, because it's a difficult transition. But we've continued to keep that door open. It has been closed to come back into the school because we don't have adequate staffing to be able to move that quickly. So that's why we're going to be looking at getting people an updated selection form that's coming out next week. And I can talk about that in a little bit. But I guess what I'm saying to you is we do have a plan. We are fully prepared if that does happen. But at the same time, there is no conversation about that being the next thing or it's inevitable. I'm very connected in Lansing. I know that those conversations exist, and we'll certainly be taking the guidance and doing what we can. But we also believe that there's a large contingent of our kids that need to be in school. Face-to-face instruction and online instruction are not the same thing. And so to say that they're identical they're not. Now, our teachers are doing an amazing job with it in a large way, but it's very difficult to expect that they're the same experience. And so we know that there are a number of our kids, particularly those that are not as self-directed, are kiddos who, are in that tier 2 and 3 group, the kids that need a little bit more support. They're going to have a more difficult time in that online setting. And so we're really looking at how do we, encourage those kids to come back. So if anything, we're kind of looking at our data and we monitor it daily. And the conversations do happen. If we have a number of staff or students that are going out, that conversation rages. Maybe it's time to take a little break for a couple of weeks. We're talking with the health department and they're advising us as well. So, Mr. Kitchen, I don't know if you want to just to kind of close out this question, say anything about what happened when we did close the high school.
Yes. So basically, all of our teachers know that they're using Canvas as their online portal. A lot of them still use Google Classroom attached to their Canvas account. But basically, the instruction is delivered in an asynchronous manner, and school goes on. The assignments are posted, and our expectation that the students are going to still, go right on through with the instruction. It's definitely not as smooth, obviously, as when we're face to face. I mean, it's not like things aren't missed, but the expectation is that the day that we're out, that they're engaging with their classroom through Canvas.
Thank you both for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for participating. Next up, we have Michelle Schaefer. So, Michelle, I don't know. I'm going to unmute you, and you should be good to go.
Okay, so my question just was if we could go towards a direction of getting all the teachers on the same platform for meeting, whether it be Google Meet or Zoom, and if that's a possibility, to get them some training on how to utilize the functionality of those.
Great feedback. So, Travis, I don't know if you maybe want to speak to, I know you're doing some training on maybe what you're seeing in terms of trends. And I know there's a lot of functionality with breakout rooms and things like that we might not be fully tapping into.
Yeah, I think that the direction the district will be heading is more than likely Google Meet, just because of the cost of Zoom. Even though Zoom has some nice features, we already have a Google Enterprise, license. So I agree, it would be nice to get everyone on one platform. I think the district was trying to offer some flexibility for the teachers. Some like the Zoom platform a lot better, but I'm with you. I think less fragmentation would be better. But so I would guess that, my guess would be that we'd be moving towards Google Meet.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, because I have noticed when my son's in some of the meetings, a lot of the teachers don't know how to mute everybody, and then background noise in other people's homes. It's difficult for other children to learn. So,
yeah, it's great feedback.
I want to add on there that I would agree that Google Meet, especially out of the box last year during the spring, we found that was definitely omitting a lot of the features that we wanted. And that's kind of what pushed us towards some teachers using Zoom. Over the summer, Google's done a great job of adding a lot of features into that Google Meet product. So hopefully we can start to, wean them back over into Google Meet. And with the new features that they have, maybe we can get everyone on a single platform.
Thank you.
And Michelle, I just wanted to add, with anything, teachers are learning. We kind of spoke about that a little bit. If you're a face-to-face teacher and you've been doing that a long time, and now you're trying to transition into what that looks like in online, it's kind of building and learning how that looks. So I can give you some, for examples, when I'm in virtual classrooms, we have teachers that are setting up norms like that, like make sure our microphone is muted unless we're talking, and they are, navigating those features. We have some teachers who are like, turn off your camera when we're watching a video so that it increases our bandwidth and things like that. So those are all kind of like tips and tricks that the teachers are learning on the way and sharing with one another in order to make everybody more successful and have more access in their remote learning classroom.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question, Michelle?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for participating too. I think next up is Tony. Tony Natchez.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Was that really loud?
No, you're good.
Okay. So I think mine is more of a comment, but I recognize you guys are really all working very, very hard to try and accommodate everybody's needs here. And it's not been very fun. I know for my job, having to make everything virtual has presented some challenges I'm not used to too. So I get it. It's stressful. And I do want you to know that teachers, they've emailed responses over the weekend, at night. They seem to really try very, very hard to make sure they're accessible to everybody. So that's really appreciated from somebody like me who might be emailing them at 2:00 in the morning because it's the only time I had that day.
Right.
But I wanted to say, for us, we're really, really struggling. Aiden has classes. We have information on Google Classroom. We have Canvas. We have Duolingo. We have Quizlet. We have stuff all over the place, and it's very, very, very difficult for us, especially, for me, I don't have a whole lot of time I can spend with him, directing him where he needs to go. And at the end of the school year, when the pandemic first started, the end of last year, it was the very first time since my kids have been at Swartz Creek schools that I knew what had to happen. I had all the resources at my disposal. I mean, it was a great experience because I could make sure he was doing what he needed to do, and we had everything we needed. And I would love to see if something like that could happen again. And for those of you who know my child, like Mr. Kitchen, he's, I would say disengaged is a fair word. Probably an at-risk kid because he's definitely not self-motivated for virtual learning. But, we're really trying, and he's sitting here doing some schoolwork right now. But if we could get it all in one place, I think would be better. And I do agree that the kids do better if they're in school. But I work for a lot of physicians, 31 physicians in Genesee County. I can tell you this pandemic is much worse than it was earlier. The numbers in Genesee County are tremendous. And I don't think this is going to get any better anytime soon. So I really don't have any interest in sending him into the building at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's great to hear that you're sitting there next to him and he's doing schoolwork. So this is a great thing. So
Yes.
keep that going. I will let Travis really kind of tee off on this one because he can give you a little background into Canvas and some of that. You probably saw my email a little over a week ago where I was just communicating out to the families that, we certainly understand having one single platform is going to be a lot easier. We did a pretty good search and study at the beginning of the year, and we determined that Canvas was going to be kind of the most robust, best way to run an online platform. We've run into a number of challenges, and I'll let Travis speak to that a little bit. But we are going to be this year allowing our teachers to kind of use either of those platforms. So the challenge for parents on that is, okay, well, I've got this child in this class and they're using Google Classroom. So 4 of his teachers use Google Classroom. And then these other 2 are still using Canvas. How does that work? Is that I'm having to learn dual systems, especially if you have a kid that's at a lower level and one at an upper level, and maybe they're using different platforms. We recognize this as a real weakness. And so we are looking at doing an exhaustive study. We're actually going to be asking parents to help in some of the decision on this. But we are looking for next year. And I'm not saying, and I don't want anybody to take it to mean that we're going to be doing everything that we're doing now next year. I mean, I hope we're back to whatever normal looks like. But I think it's an inevitable future for us, as Mr. Kitchen said earlier. There's probably going to be an online offering, maybe a hybrid. I mean, there may be some of these offerings in the future. We need to have a better platform that everybody is trained on, that everybody's going to use. And so we're going to go through that process this spring for next year. But I don't know, Travis, you want to expand a little bit on some of those issues with consistency in Canvas?
Sure. So first off, sorry for any issues that you'd be having with the learning management system. We did a pretty good research, and then, we thought we made a very good decision because the rest of the Genesee Intermediate School District also jumped on board with Canvas, and they set up a server, and we thought it was going to be, great. Unfortunately, we ran into many issues with just amount of kids coming back into the network, downtime, frustrations with teachers from slowness because, things weren't running as quickly as they wanted. So one of the reasons why we got locked into that was we also wanted to provide curriculum for teachers that were, providing online modalities. So we bought some licenses of Accelerate, which were tied to this Canvas instance that we have. And then I think what happened was some of our teachers were just super frustrated at a boiling point. So we've kind of backed off. And at this point, we're letting them use Google Classroom and Canvas both together. But I'm with you. I think having a single platform would be the best for the district. And as we move forward, it might mean that, we go ahead and purchase a hosted version of Canvas, or if Canvas isn't the right platform, we're looking at a Schoology or another product that is maybe more embedded in with PowerSchool, or we stick with Google Classroom depending on those features. So I would just say I definitely feel your pain. Hang in there. I think that for this year, we're going to still work on Canvas, still try to make improvements. We definitely are better off than we were at the beginning of the year. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll come up with a single solution for all of our teachers to use that works for everyone.
And I think Lakeisha mentioned about what other platforms are being considered. I mean, there's not a ton of them, but there are a lot more now than there were 6 months ago. And so you've got products like Schoology, which is tied into our PowerSchool program. You've got programs like Blackboard, Canvas, obviously Google Classroom's one. There's probably a dozen or more options. And so we're going to do a really good deep dive, take the time and pick one that makes a lot of sense. And so we do recognize the challenge of trying to, possibly have a child that's on either Canvas and Google Classroom. However, we also are trying to help our teachers feel confident and comfortable that they can be as skilled and adept as they can in whatever platform they're most confident in. So, Any other
appreciate
questions?
it. Thank you.
Yeah,
No,
thank you.
Just please keep in mind, some of us parents have to work so much, we can't give our kids the attention they want. So
Yes.
streamlining it for us helps us a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for your support. Turn it over to anybody else on the call right now have a question, or I can start to go to some of the questions that were submitted. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat. I will go to one of the questions that was submitted. This was submitted from Michael Ovsenik, and the question was, how will the administration deal with a possible large infusion of face-to-face students at the semester point? So this is a conversation that we're having. I think it's a good opportunity, and it'll address a number of other questions to kind of talk about how are we going to streamline things for the second semester. So at this point, next week, towards the end of the week, there's going to be a form that gets sent out to all parents in the district. And basically, the very first question on that form is going to be, am I pleased or happy with the choice that I made for my child? Meaning, I chose online and they're doing online and I'm happy with that. I want to stay with that for the rest of the year. Or obviously the answer is I chose something, but I want to make a change. At the semester point, we're going to be taking all of this data in. It's really imperative as parents that you fill that form out. That is the way that we are going to be able to staff and also address the needs that we have. And I can tell you right now, we have a waiting list of kids that want to come back into school face-to-face. We also have a number of kids who are talking about probably switching to hybrid or online. So I do think there's going to be kind of this crisscrossing effect where we're going to have some kids that are going to make some changes. What we'll find is if there's a net difference effect, meaning, okay, we have 100 more students now that want to come back face-to-face, we have to find out where those students are at, and then we're going to staff appropriately. So, you know, right now we have a fixed number of teachers, and it's not that that can't change, although there's very difficult time finding teachers right now. So teachers, we have a fixed number of teachers. We believe heavily in having our teachers teach these online classes. And so if we have a teacher that's maybe teaching online and we have 100 less online kids, we might say, okay, we need to take and find 2 or 3 teachers that are now going to be able to shift back over into a face-to-face modality. And we need to give those teachers time to plan and prepare and all of those things. And so that's kind of a part of the equation. So the form will go out next week. There'll be a 2-week window for parents to kind of think about simple selection. I picked this at the beginning. I want to keep doing it the rest of the year. Done. Survey done. Second question, though, is I'd like to make a change. There's going to be a handful of additional questions. Knowing more about what we know, we're going to try and really, as we spoke about earlier, streamline this for the second semester, address some of the things that we know are have been a challenge, and hopefully make it so that a teacher's schedule is not so burdensome, but also find ways to improve upon what we've started this fall. And so those surveys are going to be really important. So the answer to that question is, the way we're going to handle it is we're going to look at the infusion of students that we have one way or another, and we're going to staff it accordingly. And so we're used to doing that. We have made a decision recently, talking with Mr. Kitchen and the other principals. The high school is really the most challenging schedule right now. And, you know, we've talked with the teachers at the high school, and their belief is we just need to look at kind of a triage approach. So we're looking at the most challenging issues that we're seeing in the schedule, and we're going to address those first, and try and do that versus trying to start from scratch and build from ground zero, like we would say in the fall and in the summer. So hopefully that answers that question for Michael. And again, put something in the chat if you're on this call and you have additional questions that you'd like to ask us. Basically, I think I've answered a lot of the questions around modalities and how you can switch or not switch. We have a question that and it's kind of more of a comment, and it's talking about information on seniors. So Mr. Kitchen, I don't know if maybe you can talk through the plan for seniors, their graduation, their, when they're finished with school. It's usually in May. Is there a way that we can get that information out there? So the person is basically saying they'd like to get a little bit more information on seniors and kind of what's the plan for them.
Yes, that is a great question. I've been working with Michelle Loader, my secretary, so that we can get that memo out. We're basically, we're hoping for the best, obviously, in the spring. Our plan this year that we haven't really released on a mass scale, you get to hear it first, but we're hoping to have our graduation in our very own sports complex, for example. Right now we have like soft tentative plans about prom and how that's going to look. But our deadlines are still pretty much going to be the same as in previous years. Some things may look a little different, but we're going to try as much as possible to provide all the experiences to our seniors. We're still going to have, we're hoping that we might still be able to do our snow coming dance, for example, and to be able to have a king and a queen and that kind of thing. So we really are hoping after December that things are changed, and we're going to just keep responding to that. But I promise you, we're going to do our best to give them a great experience. But I would say look for that memo very soon. Before Christmas, right after Thanksgiving, will be when we'll be sending lots of information and some tentative plans with that also. But you'll definitely at least be getting the dates so that you can start planning around that.
Great. There's another question, Mrs. Preer. The question is, how can I help my child be successful in a hybrid modality? I think you could tackle that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did it specify if it was K-5 or 6-12?
I think it was just K-12. Like I didn't have a specific question.
Okay. So with the hybrid modality, we have students that are coming 2 days a week, and then they're online 3 days a week. And some of the support that we've asked the teachers to do is really kind of do a flipped classroom model. So giving the students that time for instruction and discourse with the things that they're going to be needing in the 3 days of online instruction. So what you could do to help them is maybe set up a little bit of a schedule to make sure that they're checking in with their asynchronous learning. If it's a K-5 student, there are different assignments that are within their math expressions and reading wonders. That is our K-5 reading and math curriculum tool that we use. I also know K-12, we're using a support system called Accelerate as well. So I just having those conversations about, did you tap into all of your tools? What assignments do you still have left? Just that conversation, so that a lot of our kiddos aren't necessarily well versed in those executive functioning skills of creating a time management schedule and getting in, because as Mr. Micah mentioned, we aren't putting children in front of a computer for a 6-hour day. Right? Best practices, we're having them tap in for their allotted time based on their age level. So it's really important for parents to have those conversations with kiddos on how are you doing? Do you have a daily schedule? Creating a planner. A lot of our hybrid students here at DEEC, their teachers use a planner. And so they fill it out on their Monday, Tuesday session, and then that tells them what they need to complete for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And the same with our Thursday, Friday kiddos. They use a planner, and then that tells them what they need to complete for the following Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So anything you can do to support and scaffold some of those executive functioning and planning skills so that they can help remember and tap into their assignments would be a great place to start.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think you spoke about it, but really having a solid schedule and plan. I talked with one of our elementary teachers that's in a hybrid modality, and she said the amount of communication that has to exist between the home and the teacher is absolutely fundamental. And I think that bears out to be with our online teachers as well. We have another question. It's a little bit, I think it's a loaded question, but we'll try our best. will the Swartz Creek School Board follow the Constitution and the Michigan Supreme Court or the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, which is kind of a tongue-in-cheek question. I'm not sure it's really a question, but I'll be happy to try and address that one. So, of course, everyone who takes an oath of office as a board member, and even myself, even though I'm not an elected official, we take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And so that is absolutely, the founding document that we look to. With that being said, you will see that we follow guidance from our legal counsel, and we also look at making decisions that are what we believe are in the best interest of our children. And so, of course, we would follow the Constitution, but I don't think it's an either or question. It's not a we're doing this or that. When we looked at maybe the question also kind of refers to the governor's orders. When those were deemed unconstitutional, we learned about that from the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court's job is really to determine if there's a constitutional law violation. And so we certainly made some decisions that were contrary to some of the orders. When the Department of Health and Human Services made a new order, we consulted with our legal counsel, and they determined that until, if and when the Supreme Court deems that those orders are not enforceable, then the district would have more latitude in doing what they're doing. But until then, it is an order that's in effect. And that's consistent with the guidance that we've been getting around the state. So I will tell you that I don't think that it's mutually exclusive. I will also tell you that I don't think that anyone is violating anyone's constitutional rights. But at the same time, I recognize that we're in a very contentious time. And people, unfortunately have found division in things as simple as masks. But it is happening. So we're trying our best to help everyone. We've got our arms wide open. We're trying to love kids. Our teachers are doing the best they can to just say, I don't care if you like masks or don't like masks. I want to hug on you. I want to help you learn. And that's our job. And so we continue to do that. And yes, we do have to follow the guidance that our attorneys give us, and that's what we'll continue to do. But I'm very proud of the work that's actually that's being done in our district, and it wouldn't be possible without parents and all of you as well. Are there other questions that are coming from any of our participants this evening that would like to ask us before we start to wrap up? If you were unable to attend tonight and maybe you're just watching the stream, you certainly are welcome to reach out to us via email. I will tell you that all of our building administrators, not just the ones that are on this call, they really are responsive. They understand what's going on. We talk on a regular basis. I was talking with Principal Preer earlier today, and she said, I think I'm on payroll at the health department. She talks to them all the time. So we have a lot of connection and collaboration with the health department. Your principals are very, very well versed in what's going on. So I encourage you, if you have a question, to reach out to them and also to reach out to your teachers. The teachers, man, they're doing a bang up job, and we're just really proud of them, and the support staff that are supporting making that happen. We're very thankful and lucky to have such great people. But thank you for your grace and understanding. This is a very challenging time for everybody, but we're going to continue to try and make that better. So before we leave, I would just ask you to look in your emails next week. It's probably going to be coming around Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday, which will be the new selection form for the second semester. I know that that's still a couple months away, but it takes us some time to plan and prepare and make sure that we're adequately staffed and planned so that we can really just have a phenomenal second semester. Thank you all for being with us, those that joined us. Thank you, those that joined the stream. And, look for more updates. We'll probably host another one of these in another month or so. We just want to try and make sure we're communicating as much as we can and making the information available. So wish you all the best. Have a great evening and stay safe.